My name is Elena Petrova. The restaurant smelled of truffle oil and warm rosemary focaccia. Soft amber light dripped from the chandeliers onto white tablecloths, and every clink of silverware felt like a tiny heartbeat in the hush. I sat at the corner table of La Perla, the kind of place that prints its menu on thick cream cardstock and charges 8 euros for a single glass of Barolo. My son, Matteo, all of 7 years old, swung his legs under the chair, eyes wide at the bread basket the waiter had just set down. Golden rolls still steaming. He reached for one, polite as always, and I smiled at the small victory of treating him to something special after a long week of me working double shifts at the clinic. Across from us sat my half, sister Victoria and her 2 children, Anya 9 and little Leon 5. Victoria's hair was swept into that effortless chignon she spent 40 minutes perfecting, diamonds glinting at her ears like frost on glass. She wore the navy silk dress I'd seen in the boutique window last month, the one I couldn't justify buying. Her husband, Dimitri, was late, important call, she'd said with a flick of her wrist, already scrolling her phone. Matteo finally tore a roll in half, butter melting into the crumb. "Mama, it's so fluffy," he whispered, and my chest warmed the way it does when the world feels fair for 3 whole seconds. Then Victoria looked up. Not at me, at Matteo's plate, her lips curled just enough. "We didn't order for your son," she said, voice light, almost musical, as she nudged the bread basket toward Anya and Leon. "These are for my children." The table froze. The waiter hovered with the antipasti platter. Preciato curled like pink roses, burrata glistening under olive oil. But I barely saw it. Matteo's hand stopped midair, butter shining on his fingertips. His cheeks flushed the color of pomegranate seeds. I laughed because that's what you do when shock hasn't decided whether to become tears or rage. "Vika, come on. It's just bread." She lifted one shoulder, elegant as a ballerina. "Every euro counts, Elena. You know how expensive this place is." Anya smirked, tearing into a roll with her perfect front teeth. Leon copied her, crumbs tumbling onto his cashmere sweater. Matteo looked at me, eyes glassy. "Did I do something wrong, Mama?" The waiter set the platter down and vanished, sensing the shift in temperature. I reached for Matteo's hand under the table, squeezing once. My pulse drummed in my ears like a distant storm. Dimitri arrived then, cologne first, apology second. He kissed Victoria's cheek, ruffled Leon's hair, and finally noticed the silence. "Everything okay?" he asked, but his eyes were already on the wine list. I forced a smile. Perfect. Inside, something cracked open, slow and clean, like ice on a winter pond. The drive home was a blur of wet asphalt and neon bleeding across the windshield. Matteo fell asleep against the window, his breath fogging the glass in tiny, perfect circles. I kept replaying Victoria's voice the way she'd said your son, like he was an uninvited guest at her coronation. My knuckles ached from gripping the wheel. Back in our flat, I tucked Matteo in. He clutched the little stuffed fox I'd sewn from an old coat, its ear halved, chewed from puppy days. "Mama," he murmured half, dreaming, "Are we poor?" The question sliced me open. I kissed his forehead, tasted salt. "No, Malish, we're rich in the ways that matter." But the words felt hollow even as I said them. I poured myself a glass of cheap red from the box in the fridge and sat on the balcony. The city hummed below, trams clanging, lovers arguing under street lamps, the Danube carrying its secrets east. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. "Thanks for dinner. Kids loved it. We should do it again soon." I stared at the kiss emoji until it blurred. Then I opened the banking app. The bill from La Perla had posted 312.40. My half after splitting with Dimitri was 156. 20, Victoria's share 0. She'd forgotten her card again. I thought of the years I'd spent patching the holes in her life. The 500 I lent her for Anya's ballet recital costume. The weekends I babysat so she and Dimitri could network at Lake Balaton. The way she'd call me little nurse in front of her friends, like my 12-hour shifts saving actual lives were cute. I'd swallowed it all because she was the only family I had left after Mama died. But tonight, watching Mateo's small shoulders curl inward when she took the bread, something shifted. Not rage. Rage is loud and sloppy. This was colder, sharper, a scalpel. The next morning, I called in sick to the clinic. First time in 3 years. Then I opened my laptop and started digging. Victoria's life was a carefully curated Instagram gallery. Brunches at Café Gerbode, Leon's designer sneakers, Anya's violin recitals at the Liszt Academy. But the comments told a different story. Old classmates asking why she'd ghosted their group trip to Croatia. A former nanny hinting at unpaid wages. A tagged photo from last month, Victoria in a fur coat, captioned living my best life. But the coat was from 2 seasons ago, and the background was the same cafe she'd claimed was too pedestrian. For our dinner, I made a list, every favor, every slight, every euro. Then I called Clara, my coworker whose cousin runs the city's most exclusive mommy, and vinyl night at the Ruin Bar in the 7th District. I need a favor, I said. She didn't even ask why. 2 weeks later, Victoria texted, emergency. Dimitri's boss is in town. Need a table at La Perla tomorrow. Can you pull strings, pretty please? I smiled at my phone. Of course, Sestra. Leave it to me. The night before the dinner, I stood in my bedroom mirror practicing the smile I'd need. Warm, open, the one I used on anxious patients before drawing blood. I wore the charcoal dress I'd bought secondhand on Vinted, the one that made my collarbones look sharp enough to cut glass. Mateo was at a sleepover. The flat was quiet except for the low hum of the fridge and the ticking of Mommy's old wall clock. Tick, tick, like a heartbeat counting down. I laid everything out on the kitchen table like surgical tools. The reservation confirmation at La Perla, 7:30 p.m., table for 8. A printed guest list I'd accidentally forwarded to Victoria's entire contact list. Her boss, Dimitri's investors, the influencer moms from Anya's school. A tiny USB drive tucked into a velvet pouch. One envelope, thick cream paper, sealed with red wax the color of fresh blood. Inside the envelope, a single photograph. Victoria at 19, drunk on cheap vodka in a Sofia nightclub, laughing as she painted bitch across the wall of her ex-boyfriend's apartment building. I'd kept it all these years because she'd begged me to. If anyone ever finds this, I'll die. She'd sobbed. I'd promised silence. Promises expire. The USB held something gentler, a 30-second audio clip. Victoria's voice, recorded 2 years ago when she'd called me at 3 a.m., hysterical because Dimitri had frozen her credit cards after she'd maxed them out on handbags. I'm drowning, Elena. They'll take the kids. You have to help me. Just this once. I'd wired her 3000 from my savings. She'd paid me back in installments of excuses. I slipped the envelope into my clutch. Then I opened the group chat I'd created that morning, Victoria's VIP dinner, and posted a selfie of the La Perla menu. Caption, can't wait to celebrate my sister's big night. The replies flooded in, heart emojis, champagne glasses, one from Dimitri's boss, looking forward to it, phase 1 complete. The restaurant was packed when I arrived early, the air thick with garlic and anticipation. The maître d' Luca owed me after I'd stitched his daughter's chin at the clinic last summer. I handed him the USB. Play this at dessert. I said, volume low, just for table 6. He nodded once, no questions. Victoria swept in at 7:29, trailing perfume and panic. Dimitri followed, loosening his tie. The kids were in matching velvet blazers, hair slicked like miniature oligarchs. The investors arrived next, 3 men in tailored suits, 1 woman with a Hermes Kelly bag the color of bone. Victoria Air kissed them all, voice pitched high with nerves. I stood to greet her. Sestra. I opened my arms. She hesitated, then hugged me stiffly. Over her shoulder, I saw Anya I, my dress with the same curl of lip she'd used on Mateo's bread. We sat. The wine flowed. Victoria ordered the lobster risotto for the table, my treat, and I let her. Every time the waiter refilled her glass, I caught Dimitri's glance at the bill piling up like snow. Conversation danced around money the way ballerinas avoid the edge of the stage. The investors praised Dimitri's new startup. Victoria laughed too loud, name dropping board members she'd never met. I waited. Dessert arrived, tiramisu dusted with gold leaf, tiny spoons that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. The lights dimmed for the special presentation. My clip began, at first, just a whisper under the clink of cutlery. Victoria's voice, tinny and desperate. "I'm drowning, Elena." The table fell silent, her face drained of color, lipstick suddenly garish. Dmitri frowned at the speakers. The investors exchanged glances. Then the photo. Luca had synced it to the wall screen behind the bar, visible to half the restaurant. Victoria at 19, eyes wild, spray paint dripping like blood down brick. The caption I'd added in elegant white font: "We all make mistakes. Some of us pay for them." Victoria stood so fast her chair toppled. "Elena, what the fuck language?" I said softly, echoing her tone from the bread. "Basket night. There are children present." Dimitri's boss cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should discuss the funding another time." The investors left without coffee. Dmitri followed, face purple. Victoria stayed, trembling. "How could you?" I slid the envelope across the table. "Open it." She did, the photograph again, but this time with a post-it. 3 zeros. 00 plus interest equals 3,840, payable tonight, or the full recording goes to your husband's lawyer. Her hands shook so hard the wax seal cracked. "You're blackmailing me." "No," I said, standing. "I'm collecting a debt, with interest." I leaned in, voice low. "And next time you hand my son a bread basket like he's charity, remember who taught you how to survive." I left her there, gold leaf tiramisu melting untouched. Outside, the Danube glittered black and endless. I breathed in the cold night air and felt the scalpel slide back into its sheath. The next morning, my phone was a war zone. 37 missed calls from Victoria. Voicemails that started with tears and ended with threats. I let them stack like unread bills. Matteo ate cereal at the table, humming the theme from his cartoon, unaware that the world had tilted overnight. I took him to the park. The November sun hung low and pale, turning the leaves into coins of fire. He ran ahead, boots crunching frost, fox tucked under one arm. I watched him climb the slide and felt the weight of every euro I'd ever scraped together for rent, for his winter coat, for the orthodontist appointment next spring. None of it had been charity. None of it had been weakness. At 11:03 a.m., the transfer hit my account, 3,840.00. Sender V. Petrova. Memo: debt cleared. Never contact me again. I stared at the numbers until they blurred. Then I forwarded the confirmation to Dimitri's work email with a single line. "She asked me to remind you about the joint account." I didn't need to add more. The paper trail would do the rest. By evening, the fallout rippled across Budapest's polished surfaces. Anya's violin teacher canceled her private lessons, schedule conflict. The mommy and vinyl group chat removed Victoria with a polite "we wish you well." A story slid into my DM from an old classmate, a screenshot of Victoria's latest post, deleted within minutes. Caption had read, "Some people mistake kindness for stupidity." The replies underneath were knives wrapped in silk. I cooked spaghetti with the good Parmesan, the kind that comes in a wedge, not a green tube. Matteo twirled noodles around his fork and asked if Aunt Vika was still mad about the bread. "She's learning," I said. "Some lessons cost more than others." That night, I walked to the river alone. The city lights trembled on the water like spilled jewels. I opened my banking app again and transferred 500 to Matteo's savings, the one labeled university, no touching. Then I deleted Victoria's contact, her photos, the group chat, every digital breadcrumb. The phone felt lighter in my hand. Weeks passed. The clinic gave me a raise for exemplary dedication. Matteo's teacher sent home a note. He shared his snack with a new boy today. So proud, I framed it next to the fox on his bedroom wall. One Sunday, I found an envelope slipped under my door. Thick cream paper, red wax seal. My own stationery, returned. Inside, a single bread roll, still warm, wrapped in parchment. No note, the wax had been pressed with the same initial. I carried it to the balcony, broke it in half. Steam curled into the cold air like a small ghost. I ate one piece slowly, tasting rosemary and salt, then crumbled the rest for the sparrows on the railing. They descended in a soft gray cloud, fearless. I leaned against the iron rail and looked out over the rooftops, the trams, the bridges stitched with light. Somewhere across the city, Victoria was learning to butter her own bread. Somewhere, Dmitri was learning the weight of silence, and somewhere inside me, the crack that had opened that night at La Perla had sealed, not with forgiveness, but with something harder, something that doesn't break twice. The wind carried the scent of snow. I closed my eyes and let it sting my cheeks. Some debts are paid in gold, some are paid in hunger. And some, just once, are paid in the exact moment a child learns his worth is not measured in euros, or bread, or the curl of a cruel lip, but in the quiet, unbreakable love of the person who will always, always choose him.